Greetings, everyone. In this video, I would like to do a tribute. Hold on there 1 second. I would like to do a tribute to a brethren, a keyboard player brethren of mine by the name of Earl Appleton. And Earl Appleton was a wonderful keyboardist, reggae keyboardist, reggae jazz keyboardist, ska keyboardist who recently passed. I heard about his passing sometime around the early part of May. I believe Earl may have died around the end of April. And I'm not exactly sure of the date. I'm thinking April 28th because I received the news on Facebook, which was not very it was not very pleasant to see the news of his passing. It was definitely a shock to all of us in the, at least, New York reggae community. I'm sure his passing is felt worldwide in all the places that he's played and all the people that know him. So my connection with Earl is thus. In the spring of 1995, I believe it was, I was living in the Boston area, and I had been gigging with a few soca and reggae bands around the Boston area. And I received a phone call. Who exactly I got the phone call from, I cannot recall at this time. But it was for a gig with Mikey Dread and Nicodemus in California. And at the rehearsal is when I arrived at the rehearsal. That's when I first met Earl. Earl was the keyboardist. On drums was a Virgin named Tony, who we all knew as Tony from Ochi. You know, we didn't know his last name, whatever. Somebody probably knew his last name, but we all knew him as Tony from Ochi. And I believe there was a young bass player from Brazil who was on bass. Now, that lineup of Earl, Tony, and myself were also part of one of the few bona fide all-Caribbean, all-Jamaican reggae bands in Boston, if not the only one in Boston. That was Earl Strength and Conscious Band. So it'd be Earl on keys, myself on guitar, Tony on drums, and Bobbin Nicholson on bass. So moving along with this story, we had rehearsals, and we ended up flying out to San Francisco, and we played at the Mateel Center in Garberville, California. So the bill was Mikey Dread as the headliner, Nicodemus, and then the opening act was a fellow by the name of Victor Essiet and the Mandators. I guess they were from California, Nigerian reggae band from California. So after that trip, which was wonderful, it was my first time dealing with an international level or international name reggae artist in reggae music. So it was beautiful getting to travel to San Francisco, getting to travel to California, you know, a real top level road trip, which of course I owe to the connection with Earl. So moving along through 95, Earl and I with Earl Strength and Conscious Band had worked together throughout the summer, many gigs, different places with Bobbin on bass. And sometimes if Earl couldn't make the gig, I believe there was a guy named Steve, a white guy named Steve, I think that was his name, who would fill in for Earl when Earl wasn't there. Moving right along, fall of 95 into winter of 95, 96, Earl called me again because he had a project of his own he wanted to work on. And that project was the Roots and Culture Band. And that band, we did Steel Pulse things. We did, some Garnet Silk, some other things, Mama Africa, those kind of tunes. But two of Earl's favorite songs in our repertoire were Nights Over Egypt by the Jones Girls and Soul Eyes by Mal Waldron. So Roots and Culture Band came together. We did a few shows, and on a couple of the shows, Paul Wayne, singer, young Paul Wayne, sang with us at a couple of the shows. 96, I moved back down to the New York area. Earl was still in Boston. Earl had sent me off with a good list of names of people to call. Among them was Junior Jazz, Vern Isaac, bass player, who I think was with Nasio Fontaine at the time, I believe. So Through that, I got the Sunday Reminisce shows, got involved with that and so forth. And the UNI band from Boston was down there. But now moving along, I was able through those connections through junior jazz, end up with the connection of touring with the Meditations and the Congos. So what ended up happening, I believe Earl ended up moving down to the New York area. I think it was either 97 or 98. I'm not sure. Earl ended up moving down, and to return the favor for all of his connections, I made sure I put the word out to Ansel of the Meditations and a few other people that this wicked keyboard player was coming down, and keep your eye out for him. And, rope him in as soon as possible, because once people hear about him, that's it. You're not going to be able to book him. So sure enough, Earl came down, and as his talent, took over, and everyone saw, and anyone watching this will know, his reputation and his career just took off in New York. He took off running as he got to the New York area, working with Gregory Isaacs on the regular, being a part of that band, as well as a few other bands. I would rope him in again. I brought him in with Meditations and the Congos, to return that favor as a musical brethren. And then sometime around 98 or 99, summer of one of those 2 years, I can't remember exactly, Earl called me again. He wanted to form another project. And he called me because at that time, Monty Alexander and Ernie Ranglin had come out with their album, Below the Baseline or something like that. So Earl had wanted to do something along a reggae jazz project. So he called me in. And just for a point of trivia, the name Overproof, I came up with the name Overproof. Earl and I had tossed around a few names and a few ideas, and I came up with the name Overproof, being, of course, with its direct relation to Jamaican culture, because of J and Ray nephew, Overproof rum. So I had the whole idea with the graphics, with the J and Ray label, using Overproof and other, perhaps musical things in the graphics. So that's how that came about. If anybody asks you, that was my thing. So my contribution to the project. So we played the show that I did with Earl was at the old, Lion's Den on Sullivan Street. We played there. And then I believe I went out on the road with it might have been 99. I think it was 99, because I believe after that I went on the road with the Congos, and Earl had a few more shows, and he had to bring in some other guitar player, I don't know who it was, to fill in. So anyway, moving along, Earl did his thing, his star rose. I was touring with other people, and of course Earl had great success. He toured with eventually with Burning Spear. He may even have played with I believe he did shows with Barris and a few other people, as you know, and he was a founding member of the New York Ska Jazz Ensemble. Shout out to Rocksteady Freddie. And, eventually he ended up at the pinnacle with Monty Alexander. So, he was well worth all of those positions, that he was involved in, because of his talent was undeniable. So anyway, that's just my small tribute. And I'd just like to play a song that was one of Earl's favorites, and I first heard this arrangement because it was his arrangement when we were learning this for the Roots and Culture Band back in Boston. This was his arrangement of Soul Eyes by Mal Waldron, and it was one of his favorite songs. So it was a reggae-testical arrangement of this. power, Earl Appleton.